Hello everyone, this is my behind the scenes video for Morton Lights in 2022. It's my first year doing pixels, so there's a few things here which I'm just going to go through how I've set things up. It might be the right way, it might be the wrong way. Hope you get something out of the video and enjoy watching. So across the front here, as you can see, we have got two larger candy canes and 6 smaller candy canes. And we have got 5 leaping arches which I constructed myself. So majority of the Coro came from Extreme Lighting Displays up in Central Coast. These arches made from air cedar tube and a bit of 25mm conduit, so quite straightforward. Just a little T-junction down there, my phone will focus, so it would help you guys. And inside is 90 nodes of WS28 12 strip. My entire display is a 5V display with the exception of a couple of floodlights which are 12V. I've got a few dumb strings as well, so this peace sign I bought from a guy around the corner who was selling up his more classical display. I quite like the look of it, and so that's just wired with 2 channels, one doing the doves on the outside and the peace sign in the middle. As you can see here on this fence, I've also got a classic string on the gate which continues down the side fence here as well. If we come into the property, 4 mini spiral trees here, 166 nodes of Pope piece with a 20 node star on top. These are made, one of the local guys here in Sydney cuts these ones out of a compressed fabric-y type material, and it's just laser cut, ready for the nodes. Stands up quite well in the weather. We had some pretty wild winds here about a week ago in Sydney, and I snapped 2 of the tie wires on this particular one. Quick little repair. Whole bunch of cabling through the bushes here. The hedge hides it quite nicely, and I have a controller sitting in that grey box from Bunnings. As you can see here, we've also got the floodlights, and these floodlights are uplighting the 2 palm trees I have here. Both palms are also wrapped in some Bunnings string lights. So that basically gives me 4 sets of strings, the 2 palms, the fence and the peace sign. In this control box here, this one is a Hanson HE123. Now I lock all of mine. It's chained to the tree just so nobody pinches it. I can see it getting out of focus. Let me just tap that to refocus. And excuse my dog who is deciding to join the video. Hello Nugget. So in there is our control box with the Hanson board on top, pixel board, and underneath is a DMX2/24. Which takes DMX from the Falcon controller and converts it for the string lights to use. Now you'll notice that power supply is labelled 24V, so I'm running essentially 24V backbone around the property, and a couple of 24V power supplies, and then I'm doing at prop conversion, I'll do that lock later, of the power down to the 5V. That way I minimise my voltage drop across. If we come over here, you can see there are 2 such units here, and another one just to the right under that, with the XT60H connectors doing all my 5V power injection, and the power, the Anderson connectors, power poles doing the 24V connections throughout. For music, I'm using a transmitter. I've also got a pair of speakers, and they live under this bucket, so one per bucket, and that bucket's just got a whole bunch of holes cut out in it. These speakers are outdoor speakers from Jaycar, designed to be mounted, undercover, not out in the direct elements, so that's why I've just made these to keep the majority of the rain off it. One crazy dog. Continuing along on the side over here, if my camera behaves itself. I'm using a nice little gimbal thing here to try and keep the image still so you don't see me bouncing around as I walk, but it's a little bit more fun. Another speaker and floodlight, and all of that comes back to, cobweb in my face, to the shed there behind the mega tree, and we'll check that shed out a little bit later on. I'm just going to stop this. There we go, now it's in focus. Mega tree, 20 by 75 strand at 2-inch spacing, and so 1500 total nodes and 150 node Chroma Star 36 on the top. Coming back to another FPP based controller. This one's a Smart Alec Lights Pixelbone 48, which I built myself. That one there has got local 5-volt power supplies in it, and as you can see, there's a whole bunch of power injection and the like coming out of that for the power requirements of the strings. So 10 outputs for the 20 strings, 1 up, 1 down, and then power injection at the far end of it. The post here is a 40 millimeter galvanized post, 5.7 meters in total length, and it's buried about 700 mil underground, and that's a 50 millimeter PVC sewer pipe concreted in that 700 mil, 750 mil underground. So that's nice and solid. Winch to do the topper, and then three guy wires which come back to 2-foot star pickets hammered all the way into the ground. Now, word of warning for anybody doing this, I did find my main water pipe just there when we're putting that star picket in, and that required a bit of repair. House props, so verticals are quite straightforward. That's just strip cable tied to 25mm conduit. 25mm conduit was my big fan of that stuff with everything I've done here, so you'll see a lot of that used. Window frames, same deal. Conduit drilled out, bought myself a drill press to do specifically this, and I don't know why this isn't continuously focusing. It's going to be really annoying for you guys watching the video. Couple of snowflakes, wreath on the front door. I've got an outline around the house, around the front door as well with the strip, and you'll also see that up the top here I've got a strip running right along the edge of the eaves, and that basically shines down onto the house. It looks quite nice. It gives a good little glow because of the white walls. All of the stuff at this side of the front of the house and all the stuff on the roof. Another Hansen HE123 controller sitting down here. This one's got no local power supply, so all the power supplies, all the power for all this stuff's coming out of the shed, which is essentially those orange leads coming out. In the shed, we'll get to that later, but that's where, you know, the network switch is, the main 24-volt power supplies, all the audio, everything runs out of there. What else have we got? Let's keep going and walk around this way. Just got to watch that I don't hang myself on these guy wires. I'm going to put some pool noodles on it to make it a little bit more visible, because I've got a 2-year-old who loves to run around the front yard. More snowflakes on the front here of the house, and a Bethlehem star. Please focus. I quite like the look of that Bethlehem star. It works quite well. I've got the gutter outlined. It's all chroma trim on conduit, and that's just hanging. I made up some little metal brackets just with strapping that's used on timber frames, and just bent it round to the right shape. We have a singing tree, which is in front of the car now. My mum's car's currently parked here while she's on holidays, and so my 2 cars are sitting out the front, which means it's a little bit hard to see a few things. Another singing element on the roof, and a snowflake. And then we have this box here as a tune to design. It's a P5 panel, 3 by 1 P5 panel with a BeagleBone green and a Octoscroller running it. 1 output per panel, so I get nice high refresh rates out of that. Not that I use it. Sitting in the corner here of the house, in that case, is a Falcon F16 V4. It's running essentially all the props on this quarter of the house, as well as providing the DMX output for the thing at the front, doing the dumb string lights. So from prop perspective, that's what we've got there. On the roof, scroll up a bit and kick the dog by accident. You can see I've got those couple of conduits running up to do my ridge lines, one along here and then diagonally up and across and down. So right at the top, just behind the peak of the house, is a differential receiver doing that, and there's a second differential receiver which is tucked under the solar panels doing the 3 snowflakes, the singing globe and the Bethlehem star, handling all of that. Had a bit of fun with these snowflakes. So essentially they're sitting on their end with a circle of conduit at the back, which is held down by 10 kilos of rocks in those green bags. What I found is the front wanted to slip out because it's just was cable tied on the top, so I put a second reinforcing bar, which you can possibly just see if I zoom in a little bit here. So you can see that across the bottom, and that just stops that from moving. Now we have that, like I mentioned, those crazy winds in Sydney, which is a week ago now. Saw on Facebook a few people lost props and mega trees and whatever, they didn't budge in that wind. I hadn't built the mega tree at that point in time. I only got that one up 3 days ago. So we'll see how that fares. So that's the front. What I'm going to do now, pause this, I'm going to go around to the back and show you the sort of control center in the shed. Right, so here we are to the shed. This is basically down the side of the house from the back. So you got to figure this thing out, climb over and walk down that lovely area, which is why I paused the video. So in here, this is our main control boxes and audio equipment and things like that. Whoops. So in here, all of the cabling comes in from behind through that hole at the back, just on the other side of that shed. In this one here, control box here, we have got essentially our controller power runs from here. So I push the 12 volts over the spare pairs in all the Ethernet lines. So my controllers are powered up with 12 volts all the time. However, the pixel power gets turned off individually. There's a GPIO which I can program off my Raspberry Pi temperature inside the box. As you can see, it's quite warm here today. And then a status of all of the pixel power supplies. So if I open that one up, I'll show you what's inside. So in here we have got the Netgear switch, so that's got the 4 controllers, it's got the Tune 2, the Raspberry Pi, an uplink to the rest of the house, and the Ethernet box for the C-Bus. So C-Bus is a home automation system in Australia. I've got a 4-channel C-Bus relay here which does the pixel power, and as you can see there's a little control box here, and if I just press all on, it specifically powers them up in turn. So now all of the power supplies turn on, so there's 2 24 volt power supplies in here, and that's turned on the F16, it's turned on the Mega Tree, and it's turned on the 24 volt feed for the front yard that we looked at earlier. All of the equipment in this, so there's this one here is the Raspberry Pi, which does all the show playing stuff. So it's the Raspberry Pi 3B Plus. Networked into the switch, Sound Blaster Play 3, which comes out into the audio equipment that I'll go through in a minute. This computer power supply over here is a little one from an old machine, basically powers the Pi, it powers the switch, it powers all the controllers. There is a fan in the bottom here which I can turn on. I leave it off because it's quite noisy and I don't need it that much. So we've got that, and as you can see now that I've turned those power supplies on, we've got all our pretty little status lights at the front. Now, what's it used for? The advantage of the C-Bus is because it connects in via Ethernet, I can control it from Home Assistant, I can control it from FPP via MQTT. So essentially before my show starts, it sends the commands, turns on all the pixel powers, and a bunch of other stuff which I'll go through. And then at the end of it, I can turn it all off, and then that way it just avoids, one, having the show powered up all the time, which seems to be a cause of some of the pixel issues that people are seeing. But it also means I save a little bit of power. So yeah, there's that. I'll just close that off, and then you probably notice these are big current transformers, so they measure the amount of power that's going through each of those 4 circuits, and they feed back. There's an iota watch there, which is a little power monitoring system that allows you to see. I can see exactly how much power the entire show is drawing at any one time. Here on the right hand side, that's another C-Bus relay, but it's a little bit more portable. It plugs in, there's a lead coming out, C-Bus lead coming out, plugs in the back of it, takes power in, and it's got essentially 4 relay outputs. So one is the tune to sign, one is the FM transmitter which is sitting behind, one is the amplifier for the speakers, and the 4th one here is the fluoro light above my head so I can turn it on before I come out here in the middle of the night. And as you can see there, those big waterproof connectors are to all of the pixel powers, the yard one, the F16, and that'll be the Megatree pixel powers. From an audio perspective, so stereo audio comes out of the Sound Blaster 3 through this cable here. It plugs into this compressor, Behringer Multicom compressor. 2 sets of stereo channels, left, right, and left, right. It's really simple, it's just a bridge cable that basically comes in and then loops to the other input. One stereo pair drives the transmitter, the other stereo pair drives the amplifier. And the reason I have this, it means that I've got quite hard compression, audio compression on the transmitter, which means that one, all of the volumes are relatively consistent. When you're listening to it between songs, there's no loud and quiet bits and whatever. Most commercial FM transmitters compress quite heavily for that reason. Also prevents overmodulation and a whole bunch of other things. And the one to the speakers is not compressed nearly as hard because I want to be able to control it a bit more. It also means that I can adjust the FPP volume. I generally leave it about 80%, but I can bring it down to about 60%. That will bring down the speakers out the front without affecting the transmitter too much, because it just won't compress it as hard. And then for monitoring it all, I have this happy little Unify camera here. That way I can just log in via a browser and just make sure that things are lit up and switched on the way I want to. That's why this is all sitting at a funny angle so that the camera sees it all. The other thing that I was talking about with the MQTT stuff and being able to control these relays, I haven't got it set up yet. I've ordered the Coro sign to be printed from Vistaprint. But the push to listen button for pedestrian traffic, that's essentially, I've written a script on FPP that connects to a GPIO on the front controller. That then sends an MQTT signal through, which turns the amplifier on. And then once the amplifier's on, music keeps playing. After 10 minutes, it'll send an off command. The amplifier turns off and the music out the front turns off. So that's all integrated through that, and it basically works just by powering the amplifier on and off. Likewise, transmitter, everything gets turned off outside of show hours. So the only things that are left on and running during show hours, compressor, because it's just on 24-hour power, the Pi, the PC power supply that is basically doing all of the controllers. That way I can go make changes in X-Lights, I can upload to controllers and I can get everything working, but I don't have to worry that, pixels are powered up all the time and things like that. The only one I do need to power up if I do want to make changes is the Tune to sign, so it is just connected, it's got an Ethernet line into it, and that's just hard power. There's a single power supply, and that turns the Beagle on and off, and the 3 panels. So that's that. It's a relatively simple setup for first year. It all works. It all seems to go okay. There's some things I may do a little bit differently next year. We'll see how it goes. Today is the 27th of November. First show is on 1st of December. So we'll see how it goes. I've got a few people already who have spoken to me and said, "Oh, really excited to see it." So I'm hoping it will all go well and everything just works. But that's it. It's a wrap. Hope you've enjoyed the video. Hope you got something out of it. As always, ping me on ACL Skymaster or drop me a note here in the comments. I'm often on the Zoom room, so come and say g'day there as well. Happy to hear feedback or suggestions, or if you need a hand with a bit of explanation on the way I've done something because you might like that idea, more than happy to go through it all. Thanks everyone for listening. Take care.